Imagine you are walking in a desert valley where the silent Rocky Mountains seem to be hiding countless secrets for thousands of years. There, in the distance, you see a road leading straight to the Valley of the Kings, the resting place of the most powerful pharaohs of Egypt. People often think that each pharaoh has a magnificent tomb filled with treasures and curses. However, among the dozens of tombs here, there is a place that has puzzled archaeologists for more than a century. That is KV55. This tomb was excavated in 1907. Small, sketchy, even a bit sloppy, completely different from the usual grandeur of royalty. Inside, people found a broken coffin, objects with erased names, and a male mummy in poor condition. Strangely, the coffin itself has feminine lines, as if it was made for a woman and then repaired for a man. Immediately, KV55 became the center of fierce debate. Who was buried in this tomb? Was it Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh who dared to challenge the entire Egyptian pantheon, or Smenkhkare, the obscure king who only appeared briefly in history books? Or even, some scholars hypothesized that this was the mummy of Nefertiti, the most beautiful woman in Egyptian history, who was also suspected of having ruled as a pharaoh. But then all the clues became confusing. Names were erased. The age of the mummy was determined to be contradictory. DNA test results opened up many different directions. KV55 was like a haunted tomb where anyone who entered only brought back more questions instead of answers. And the scariest thing of all, if KV55 really contained the body of a cursed pharaoh, then why was history determined to hide his identity? The secret of the Valley of the Kings continues to fascinate scientists. Perhaps one day we will find the answer. Maybe it's not one of the powerful kings, but an unknown queen whose name has been lost to time. Let us know what you think. And if you like this story, click on the screen to watch more videos about ancient Egypt. Part 1. Exploring the KV55 tomb. Let's rewind time back to the 14th century BC, the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, the heretic king. During his reign, Egypt experienced a massive earthquake. Not only did the capital move, but many old customs and religions also collapsed. For many years, historians believed that everything happened according to Akhenaten's wishes. But in recent years, a new theory has prevailed. Akhenaten is just a pawn. Behind him is a powerful woman, a woman whose name will resound throughout history. Kia, the woman whose name was removed from canopic jars in KV55, was not an ordinary queen. She was the embodiment of power during the Amarna period. Her influence over the king, over the country, was enormous. And at the same time, she was a mystery that archaeologists are still trying to solve even today. After the discovery of KV55, scientists proposed 3 hypotheses about the identity of the male mummy inside. The first hypothesis: the mummy belonged to Pharaoh Akhenaten himself. This idea seems absurd because the Valley of the Kings was not for everyone. Only those who held the title of pharaoh could be buried here. In addition, there are too many mummies in the Valley of the Kings that are undoubtedly Akhenaten. In 1912, a magnificent tomb was discovered, which is now known as the home of the pharaohs. Here, 700 treasures were found along with several mummies. Among them, there is one mummy wrapped in a bandage with a bull head. According to a plaster cast taken by X-ray, that mummy belongs to Akhenaten. After the discovery of this tomb, the hypothesis of Akhenaten being the male mummy in KV55 was almost completely abandoned. Hypothesis No. 2. The male mummy in KV55 is Smenkhkare. This hypothesis was popular in the late 19th century, when Smenkhkare was considered the successor of Akhenaten. He appeared in several documents, but his appearance was never recorded, so any portrait of Smenkhkare is a modern artist's rendition. One thing we know about him is that he died around 1332 BC, less than a year after Akhenaten's death. If we assume that the male mummy in KV55 really belonged to Smenkhkare, then how did he end up in a place like this? Was he buried here in a hurry because he died suddenly? Or was he intentionally buried here? After the discovery of the East Carnarvon's remains, the idea that the male mummy belonged to Smenkhkare was basically overthrown. Howard Carter found his tomb in 1913, where he discovered several mummies, including one wrapped in bandages depicting a baboon. Through X-rays, Carter concluded that the mummy belonged to a young man aged 15 to 16. Moreover, his tomb was not hastily dug. Rather, it was very meticulously built. So most likely the male mummy in KV55 is not Smenkhkare, but just another prince of the Amarna dynasty. But the question arises, who was he? Who was buried in the mysterious tomb KV55? To answer that question, let's go back to the beginning. Back to that male mummy that was originally buried as a woman. On the surface, the male mummy looks normal. He's just an ordinary Egyptian man. He was probably about 165 centimeters tall, medium build, long face, high cheekbones. But when scientists thoroughly examined him, they found that the male mummy had signs of an illness, kyphosis. Kyphosis makes the spine curve like a camel's back. At the time, the only known cause of kyphosis was tuberculosis. Therefore, the male mummy was probably a sick man, but his illness did not prevent him from being buried in the Valley of the Kings, perhaps because he was a member of the royal family. Maybe even because of his illness, his appearance changed. People at that time believed that a beautiful appearance was a sign of God's favor. Therefore, it is possible that this man was deliberately disguised as a woman, so that people would not know his true identity. The scientists put forward three names, three possibilities for the identity of the male mummy. The first is Tut, the son of Akhenaten and Kia. The second is Smenkhkare, the putative heir to the throne of Akhenaten. The third is Enkmahor, Akhenaten's favorite and the true power behind the throne. In fact, the male mummy may not be a man at all, but a woman. Some researchers believe that this mummy is Taitai, Akhenaten's daughter. That would explain why the coffin had feminine features, and why the name Kia was erased from the canopic jars. But this is only a hypothesis. There is no evidence to prove that the male mummy in KV55 is Taitai. Perhaps in the near future, scientists will find new evidence to identify this mummy. But until then, this is still an eternal mystery. And you, what do you think about this case? Let me know your thoughts below. Part 2. The first clue. Who was Akhenaten? Imagine you are walking into a dark room, with only the light of an archaeological flashlight scanning the faded stone walls. On it are hieroglyphs, faded, but still bearing the name of a special king, Akhenaten. Many researchers believe that to understand who really designed the pyramids, we need to start with this character, an unusual pharaoh who dared to challenge thousands of years of ancient Egyptian tradition. Welcome back to the series, where we seek answers to one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Who really designed the pyramids? Today, Part 2. Let's look at the first clue that brought experts closer to the answer, leading us into the world of a great pharaoh, his strange decisions, and the revolutionary changes he made to Egypt. Akhenaten, originally named Amenhotep IV, reigned around the 14th century BC during the 18th dynasty. He took the throne at the age of 16 after defeating his rivals, including his own father. Like many young rulers, he began his reign by continuing the traditions of his predecessors. But soon this pharaoh realized that he wanted more. Akhenaten grew up hearing stories about the military exploits of his ancestors, their victories, their wealth. But he did not want to continue that path. Akhenaten became famous for abandoning the gods of Egypt, refusing to take part in wars, and refusing the luxurious life. Instead, he preferred to spend his time planning the city and creating art. Akhenaten once built a completely new capital, Amarna. It broke away from the traditional pattern of the Egyptian city. The capital was planned with straight axes, open temples, unlike the traditional closed architecture. The city was divided into two parts by a large avenue. The traditional layout of streets in Egypt was like a bazaar, winding, chaotic, but this new street was exceptionally straight and unique. Many archaeologists believe that Akhenaten breaking the mold thinking can also be reflected in the idea of special works, such as pyramids. But why did Akhenaten dare to do something so crazy? Because of love. Akhenaten fell in love with a woman named Nefertiti and married her before he took the throne. The couple had 6 daughters. They were very happy together and wanted to show the whole world how much they loved each other. To do that, they needed a new religion, because ancient Egypt polytheism did not allow for just one couple to stand out so brightly. So Akhenaten decided to single out one god, Aten, the sun god. Akhenaten ordered every temple dedicated to any god to be rebuilt in honor of Aten. If there was no temple, then the god was simply abolished. The pharaoh's wife, Queen Nefertiti, became a great priestess of Aten and played an important role in the affairs of the new state religion. She and the pharaoh appeared on almost all the same altars and sphinxes, emphasizing the connection between the earthly ruler and the supreme god. The royal couple glorified the sun god everywhere and always. They even changed the pharaoh's name. Amenhotep means Amen is satisfied, but Akhenaten means the spirit of Aten is pleased. So the new religion took away not only the gods, but also the names of the Egyptians. All over the country, people had to change their names to reflect the new faith. Many refused and were exiled from Egypt. It was a real religious revolution. And now historians are wondering, what if the pharaoh had also decided to radically change the appearance of his country? What if he was the one who gave the order to build something completely new, unprecedented, something like pyramids? After all, the construction of such structures required a lot of organization, coordination, manpower, and most importantly, money. Money that the pharaoh set aside for building magnificent temples instead of waging wars. After Akhenaten came to power, Egypt experienced a real economic boom due to trade. The treasury was replenished. Thanks to these funds, the country's agriculture developed rapidly. New lands were irrigated, harvests increased. There was plenty of food for everyone, and the population of Egypt increased greatly. At the same time, Akhenaten completely stopped paying tribute to the Hittites and Kedah. As a result, he got even more money. So the pharaoh could well afford to build something grandiose, especially since he officially abandoned traditional beliefs. And the pyramids were built to glorify the gods. So Akhenaten could decide to build something in honor of the sun god Aten. But what is the connection between the sun and pyramids? One can only speculate about this. But there is another fact that brings them together. In many stone carvings, Akhenaten is depicted looking up at the sun, Aten, a circle that radiates light down to the earth. And that image makes many scholars ask, is the pyramid, with its pointed shape reaching up to the sky, the material tool to connect with Aten? Unfortunately, we have no exact evidence that the pharaoh ordered the construction of the pyramids, but we have some clues left by history. So let's try to analyze them and draw our own conclusions. In addition to the assumption that Akhenaten was the one who ordered the pyramids, there are 2 others. The first is that the pyramids were built by the architect Imhotep. He served under several pharaohs, starting with Djoser. Many associate the appearance of the pyramids with the emergence of Imhotep. The third version says that the pyramid construction project arose spontaneously. A group of builders came up with the idea themselves and received support from the government. Which of these assumptions is correct? First, let's look at Imhotep. He was a real genius. He designed the first huge step pyramid. He built the complex of King Djoser. He also built temples, tombs. He was a great architect and mathematician. But he was not a god. And even though he worked for 3 pharaohs, including Unas, who ruled from 2375 to 2345 BC, there is no evidence that he built pyramids. Yes, the first pyramids indeed appeared during the reign of Unas, but they were built according to the plan of someone else, perhaps the one who inspired him with this idea, the Pharaoh Akhenaten. What about the third option? The spontaneous creation of pyramids? No, not a single scientist seriously takes this assumption. Archaeologists find more and more artifacts confirming that the first pyramids were built according to a plan and design. Everything indicates that the Egyptians knew exactly what they were going to build. How do we know that? For example, thanks to the discovery of a model of the Great Pyramid of Giza, archaeologists found that its slopes were smooth and the structure stood exactly on the cardinal points. Building such a structure without a plan is simply impossible. So there was obviously a mastermind behind the construction. Someone had a brilliant idea, and someone had to implement it. So the question arises, who was this mastermind? The second part of our video is coming to an end. We suggest you make your own conclusions based on the facts presented. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. Now about the continuation. Soon we will reveal the name of the person who, according to many researchers, could be the mastermind behind the pyramids. Spoiler alert, it's not just a man, but also a woman. Are you curious to find out who it is? Then subscribe and watch the next episode soon. Part 3. The Smenkhkare Hypothesis, the Shadow Pharaoh. The new king is coming. After the golden age of Thutmose III, Egypt began to decline. Trade routes were getting longer and more expensive. Administration became more complicated. The treasury got emptier and the enemies became bolder. While Egypt was exhausting itself, its neighbors were getting stronger and preparing for invasion. Egypt needed a miracle. It needed a strong ruler, someone to stop the decline and restore the country's strength. But instead, Egypt got Akhenaten, a heretic pharaoh who ruined everything. You know his story. He abandoned Thebes, alienated the population with his new monotheistic cult, completely destroyed the economy, and left the country defenseless before its enemies. The Egyptians paid dearly for the pharaoh's experiments. But why would the gods do such a thing? The answer lies in the pharaoh's bloodline. Akhenaten was not born into the royal family. He was the son of a minor official who married the future Queen T. Through this marriage, Akhenaten was related to the royal family, but he was not a direct heir. Therefore, when he came to power, his legitimacy was shaky. To consolidate his rule, he needed to find allies and remove enemies. And he probably thought he found them in his own family. Akhenaten was related to the royal family by marriage, but he didn't marry just anyone. His wife was the beautiful Nefertiti, the daughter of the previous pharaoh. Their union was supposed to smooth out any rough edges and rally the nobility behind them. Unfortunately, things didn't work out that way. Akhenaten went too far. He abolished traditional cults and appointed his wife to the role of the main deity, which caused discontent among the priests and the people. In the end, this policy led to civil war. The war was suppressed, but the damage was done. Discontent with Akhenaten's policies continued to grow. This means that at any moment, the dissatisfied nobles could raise a rebellion and overthrow the pharaoh. But this never happened. At least there are no records of it in the historical sources. Instead, the royal archives tell us about a strange pharaoh named Smenkhkare, who ruled right after Akhenaten. Ancient authors considered Smenkhkare to be a separate ruler. For example, the Turin king list placed him right after Akhenaten. Other records called him the son of the pharaoh and said that he ruled for 1 to 3 years. But how much truth is there in these stories? Was Smenkhkare a real person or just a figment of the historian's imagination? Let's look at the arguments of both sides today. For those who think that Smenkhkare was a real king, the main argument is that there was a real person behind the title. Supporters of this theory refer to the discovery of a mysterious mummy in the Valley of the Kings. It's a male mummy aged between 20 and 30, buried in the Theban necropolis. Researchers believe that this mummy belongs to Smenkhkare because no other Egyptian ruler of that age was buried in the Valley of the Kings. This suggests that the mummy belonged to a member of the royal family, someone important enough to deserve a place among the pharaohs. Moreover, the burial of this individual was very modest, which can be explained by a short reign. For example, the tomb was carved directly into the rock without any decorations. If Smenkhkare ruled for only 1 to 3 years, then it's understandable why he didn't have time to decorate his tomb. Also, his shroud was very simple. In general, the whole funeral ceremony seemed to have been hastily organized. Perhaps the royal court was simply afraid to invest too much effort into the funeral of a pharaoh who had no time to become popular with the people. Another argument in favor of the existence of Smenkhkare is the fact that he is mentioned in the Amarna letters. These are clay tablets from various regions of the Egyptian kingdom. In one of the letters, we read that Akhenaten sent gifts to the king of Kadesh, and we are explicitly told that Smenkhkare was not yet pharaoh. So the supporters of this theory conclude that Smenkhkare was indeed a real person who waited in the wings while Akhenaten was carrying out his crazy reforms. When the heretic pharaoh died, Smenkhkare took over and ended Akhenaten's religious experiment. Then he restored the old gods, returned the capital to Thebes, and established a golden age of peace and prosperity. But unfortunately, the facts don't seem to be on the side of supporters of this theory. Even the mummy has nothing to do with Smenkhkare, except for the fact that he was young. The age of the mummy doesn't match the information from the Turin king list, which says that Smenkhkare ascended the throne at 16 and ruled for 4 years. And we know nothing about the appearance of the deceased, whether he had any health problems, what kind of ritual he was buried according to, and so on. In addition, the mummy was discovered in a previously unexplored area of the Valley of the Kings, which raises suspicions that grave robbers may have moved the body there from another tomb. As for the argument from the Amarna letters, it can be easily refuted. We don't know how long Smenkhkare was waiting in the wings. He could have been a crown prince for 10 or 15 years, even longer. During this time, Akhenaten could have given him the title of pharaoh. So we have no reason to assume that Smenkhkare ruled independently during Akhenaten's lifetime. And the fact that he is called king in some sources does not negate the possibility that he was still formally a subordinate. Now let's talk about the arguments of those who consider Smenkhkare to be a myth. What if he was never a pharaoh? What if he was just Akhenaten's son who inherited the throne and continued his father's legacy? This theory seems to be confirmed by the fact that ancient authors sometimes call Smenkhkare the son of Akhenaten. However, it's possible that this is just a way of showing lineage, sort of like saying the son of Ramses, even though we know that this doesn't mean direct offspring. So Akhenaten could be called the son of Smenkhkare, even if he wasn't, and there is no direct evidence that Smenkhkare and Akhenaten were related. On the contrary, the only contemporary source that mentions Smenkhkare calls him the stepson of the pharaoh. This clearly indicates that they were not related by blood. Nevertheless, Egyptologists tend to ignore this detail and consider Smenkhkare to be Akhenaten's younger brother. This idea is based entirely on the assumption that Akhenaten couldn't have any children of his own because of his non-royal birth. But there is no evidence of this. Yes, Akhenaten and Nefertiti had no heirs, but this could have been due to the peculiarities of their marriage. They could have been married in a kind of spiritual union without intimacy. Or maybe Akhenaten had children from another wife. Unfortunately, we don't know about it. But even if Akhenaten had no children, this wouldn't necessarily mean that Smenkhkare was his brother. Maybe they weren't even related at all. Perhaps Smenkhkare was a representative of some noble family that supported Akhenaten. In exchange for support, the pharaoh made Smenkhkare his heir and promised him the throne after his death. The theoretical framework looks pretty good. The only problem is that it's not backed by any evidence. All we know about Smenkhkare is that he was supposedly the stepson of Akhenaten and ruled for 1 to 3 years. But there is no indication that he was Akhenaten's brother. Such a statement would be a bold assumption, but there's no way to prove it. So what do we have in the end? 2 theories with almost equal numbers of supporters. Nobody can say for sure whether Smenkhkare was a real person or a fictitious name used to cover up a power vacuum. But perhaps this mystery doesn't need to be solved. Perhaps Smenkhkare will remain a shadow, forever hiding behind the bright light of Akhenaten. Part 4. Could the mummy be Nefertiti? The discovery of a strange coffin has reopened an old mystery about the fate of the famous Queen Nefertiti. The coffin is only the latest clue in a story that begins thousands of years ago. In this video, we're going to explore the discovery of the new mummy and see if it really might be the lost Queen Nefertiti. We'll also look at what her story can teach us about life in ancient Egypt and the secrets of its rulers. Ancient Egypt was one of the most powerful civilizations in the ancient world. It was known for its impressive monuments and its advanced culture. The Egyptians kept detailed records of their history, including the names and images of their rulers. These records help us to piece together the events of ancient Egypt and learn about its people. One of the most famous rulers of ancient Egypt was the Pharaoh Akhenaten. He reigned from 1353 to 1336 B. During his reign, he introduced a new religion to Egypt, one that worshipped the sun god Aten. He also moved the capital of Egypt to Amarna and changed the way that the country was governed. Akhenaten had several wives during his lifetime, but the most famous was Nefertiti. She was the daughter of the Pharaoh of the 18th dynasty and was married to Akhenaten when he was still known as Amenhotep. When Akhenaten became Pharaoh, he made Nefertiti his great of praises, a title that showed how much he loved and respected her. Together, they had 6 daughters, 2 of whom later became queens. Despite the fact that she was such an important figure in ancient Egypt, very little is known about Nefertiti's life. Most of what we know comes from the artwork that was created during her lifetime. This artwork shows her as a beautiful and powerful woman. She is often shown wearing the royal crown and holding symbols of power. But beyond her status as a powerful ruler, we don't know much about her life. We don't know how she died or where she was buried. And some historians even question whether she really existed at all. There are several theories about what happened to Nefertiti after Akhenaten's death. The most popular theory is that she outlived him and continued to rule Egypt as a regent for their daughter. This theory is based on a number of pieces of evidence, including the fact that Nefertiti was the only one of Akhenaten's wives to keep her title after he died. There are also a number of pieces of artwork that show her wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, a symbol of royal power. This evidence suggests that she was a powerful ruler in her own right, and that she was able to maintain control of Egypt after her husband's death. Another theory is that Nefertiti was executed by Akhenaten's successor, Smenkhkare. This theory is based on the fact that there is a gap in the historical record between the death of Akhenaten and the accession of Smenkhkare. It is possible that Nefertiti was killed during this time period, although there is no evidence to support this theory. Finally, some historians believe that Nefertiti simply faded into obscurity after Akhenaten's death. This theory is based on the fact that there is very little evidence of her after the 12th year of Akhenaten's reign. It is possible that she died during this time period, or that she simply gave up her royal life and retired from public view. The mystery of what happened to Nefertiti has captured the imaginations of historians and archaeologists for centuries. Her disappearance from the historical record is one of the most enduring mysteries of ancient Egypt. While there is no definitive answer to what happened to her, the discovery of the mummy may provide new clues. Only time will tell if this mummy is really Nefertiti. If it is, it would be a major discovery, providing insights into the life and death of one of ancient Egypt's most famous rulers. If not, it will still be an important piece of the puzzle, helping to piece together the events of ancient Egypt and the people who lived there. But let's go back to the coffin. On November 2022, researchers from the University of Vienna announced that they had discovered the tomb of a previously unknown pharaoh who lived around 3,300 years ago. They say that the tomb contains a mummy that may be the lost Queen Nefertiti. The coffin was found in the Theban necropolis, which is located near the city of Luxor in Egypt. The coffin is made of red granite and is decorated with scenes from Egyptian mythology. It is also adorned with the name of the pharaoh, Tutankhamun, who was the son of Akhenaten and Nefertiti and ruled Egypt from 1332 to 1323 BC. But according to the researchers, the coffin does not belong to King Tutankhamun. Instead, they believe that it belonged to a woman who may be Queen Nefertiti. The reason why the researchers believe that the coffin may contain the mummy of Queen Nefertiti is that the style of the coffin is different from other coffins found in the area. The coffin is much more ornate and is decorated with scenes from Egyptian mythology. This suggests that it was made for someone of very high status, such as a queen. The coffin also contains a number of unusual features, such as a false bottom, which may have been used to hide the mummy from grave robbers. In addition to the coffin, the tomb also contained a number of other artifacts, such as jewelry, coins, and a number of small statues. These artifacts provide further evidence that the tomb belonged to someone of very high status. One of the most interesting artifacts found in the tomb is a small statue of a woman that is believed to represent Queen Nefertiti. The statue is made of wood and is decorated with gold leaf. It is also inscribed with the name of Queen Nefertiti and a number of titles that she held during her lifetime. The discovery of this tomb and its artifacts has shed new light on the life and death of Queen Nefertiti. It provides further evidence that she played a significant role in ancient Egyptian society and that she was revered as a powerful and influential ruler. While the discovery of the coffin is exciting, it has also generated a lot of controversy. Some experts have cast doubt on the find, arguing that the coffin is too well preserved to have been from the time of Akhenaten, and that the mummy inside may not be that of a woman. Others argue that the coffin is too similar to those found in other parts of Egypt, and that it is not unique enough to be the final resting place of Queen Nefertiti. Despite this controversy, the researchers who made the discovery stand by their work. They argue that the coffin is exactly the kind of coffin that would have been used for a high-status individual, such as Queen Nefertiti, and that the mummy is indeed female. They also point out that the statue found in the tomb is a strong indication that the coffin is indeed the final resting place of Queen Nefertiti. Only time will tell if the coffin is indeed the final resting place of Queen Nefertiti. If it is, it will be one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the 21st century. It will also provide valuable insights into the life and death of one of ancient Egypt's most famous rulers. But even if the coffin is not that of Queen Nefertiti, it will still be an important discovery. It will provide further evidence about the culture and customs of ancient Egypt and the people who lived there. What do you think? Is this coffin really the lost final resting place of Queen Nefertiti? Or is it just another dead end in the search for one of history's biggest mysteries? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so that we can keep bringing you more amazing stories. Part 5. DNA and modern science come into play. Join us as we look at how scientific discoveries may finally reveal the truth behind one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. For centuries, scholars have argued with texts, hieroglyphic tablets, and fragmentary archaeological clues. But in the 21st century, the game has changed. A new weapon has been introduced: DNA science. And when researchers brought this technology to thousands of years-old mummies, The world held its breath. Would we finally know the true identity of the KV55 mummy? DNA analysis in 2010, a seismic boost. In 2010, a team led by Zahi Hawass, one of the most famous figures in Egyptian archaeology, announced shocking results. They announced that, based on DNA analysis, the KV55 mummy was the biological father of Tutankhamun, the world-famous boy Pharaoh. If the results were correct, the circle of doubt would quickly close. Because Tutankhamun, his father was none other than Akhenaten, the eccentric pharaoh who caused the Aten religious revolution. The DNA results seemed to be golden evidence, reinforcing the long-standing hypothesis that KV55 was Akhenaten. But there are still cracks in the picture. Science seemed to bring an absolute answer, but the reality was far from it. Many experts were quick to point out that DNA from ancient mummies is never perfect. Genetic samples are often damaged by time, by burial conditions, and by the mummification process itself. In the case of KV55, many DNA segments were broken, forcing scientists to piece them together indirectly. That makes the results not completely certain. It is possible that, instead of Akhenaten, KV55 could have been another male member of the Amarna family. In this dynasty full of overlapping blood relations, that is entirely possible. An uncle, a cousin, or even a forgotten prince could match the DNA that are found. Bone age testing, conflicting evidence. If DNA's eyes seem clear enough, scientists try to find answers through bone age analysis. And this is where things get more confusing. Some tests have shown that the skeleton in tomb KV55 was around 35 years old when it died. If true, this would fit perfectly with Akhenaten. As many historical sources say, he died in middle age. However, other studies have shown a different age. The skeleton was around 25 when it died. That would fit much better with Smenkhkare, the obscure pharaoh we just discussed. These conflicting results add to the mystery. Could this be a flaw in modern analysis techniques? Or has history itself deliberately left a gap so that we can never be sure? An unanswered question. So after all the DNA testing, bone studies, and endless debate, do we have a final answer to the mystery of KV55? The answer is, not yet. Science, instead of closing the debate, has opened up many other avenues. If KV55 is Akhenaten, then we are looking at the mummy of one of history's greatest reformers. If it is Smenkhkare, then the mystery is even greater. A short-lived king, but why was he buried in such an important tomb? And if not both, then who else could have stepped into this historical gap? It seems that the shadow of the unknown still hangs over the discovery of KV55. Perhaps one day new evidence will allow us to shine a light into the darkness, but until then, the enigma remains. What do you think? Is the mystery of the mummy's identity solved, or does it continue to elude our understanding? We would love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to stay tuned for more thrilling tales from history's past. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. Many of us dream of becoming stronger, braver, or more successful versions of ourselves. But the path to self-improvement often feels like a maze without a clear direction. Who was buried in tomb KV55? We already know the answer, don't we? King Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh who moved the empire away from the gods of the Egyptians to worship only the sun. But what secrets does the tomb still hold? Join us today as we explore Part 6, Unsolved Mysteries of Tomb KV55, a feminine coffin for a male mummy. When opening the coffin lid, archaeologists realized that the shape and symbols on it were very feminine. Curves, hairstyles, and even motifs that were originally for women. However, inside was a male mummy. Why was there this paradox? Was it just reuse? During the chaotic period of Amarna, people reused funeral objects for a quick burial? Or was it a deliberate mistake? a way to defame the dead, to obscure his true identity. The engraved name was erased all over the coffin and funeral objects. Many of the engraved names had been intentionally erased. This act was not only to conceal, but also to cast a curse of silence, cutting the deceased off from the memory of posterity. Who wanted to erase this identity? Was it Tutankhamun's court, which wanted to erase all traces of the Amarna dynasty? Or was it some political faction purging Akhenaten's legacy? The silence of history in the official documents of the Egyptian court, there is not a single record of this man's burial. No ceremony, no description, no mention. For a figure of such importance as Akhenaten or Smenkhkare, this silence is all the more frightening. It is like a deliberate gap where history has been distorted or erased. The ghost of the Amarna dynasty, when Tutankhamun ascended the throne, the Amarna dynasty, with its extreme religious reforms, with its heretical king Akhenaten, was seen as a stain. The characters involved gradually disappeared from the annals, smeared, erased, or quietly buried. KV55 is a living testament to that ghost. A seemingly abandoned tomb, an unidentified mummy, and traces that both reveal and conceal. After more than a century of research, the mystery of tomb KV55 is far from being fully unraveled. Each new discovery adds another layer of intrigue, another enigma to be deciphered. Is it possible that the sterile history books have done an injustice to this forgotten pharaoh? Could there be more to the story than the official narrative? What other secrets are hidden in the silent halls of the Valley of the Kings? These questions echo through time, urging us to listen. In the shadow of the majestic pyramids, the mystery of KV55 continues to deepen, challenging our understanding of ancient Egypt. Perhaps one day, the sands of time will reveal the truth, shedding light on this enigmatic tomb. But until then, KV55 will continue to stand as a testament to the enduring allure of the unknown. And now it's your turn. What do you think about these unsolved mysteries? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights could be the missing piece to this puzzle. The hushed whispers echo through the ages, carried on the wind that dances across the sands of time. They speak of a tomb, not just any tomb, but one that holds the key to a forgotten era, a relic of a past that both fascinates and chills. KV55, they call it, hidden away in the Valley of the Kings like a secret buried in the heart of eternity. For centuries, its existence was a mere footnote in the grand narrative of ancient Egypt, a blank page in the story of a kingdom lost to the sands of time. But within its four walls lies more than just the bones of a forgotten pharaoh. KV55 is a mirror to a kingdom in turmoil, a silent witness to a religious revolution that shook the very foundations of a nation. Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, he who dared to defy tradition, to turn his back on the gods his ancestors had revered for generations. His was a reign of chaos, a period of upheaval that left an indelible mark on the course of Egyptian history. And yet, despite his audacious reforms, his legacy has been shrouded in mystery, his memory fragmented, his image distorted. Was he truly the radical innovator history remembers? Or was he merely a pawn in a game of power, a puppet dancing to the tune of a hidden hand? And if so, who was the puppeteer? And what strings did they hold to sway the course of a kingdom? At the center of this enigma lies KV55, a tomb that has defied the sands of time, a burial chamber that whispers tales of a forgotten pharaoh. It is here, in the heart of this subterranean labyrinth, that we find an anonymous mummy, a skeleton draped in linen, a silent specter from a bygone era. They found him swathed in gold, a mask of inlaid glass covering his face, hiding the features that could have revealed his identity. But his name has been lost to time, his story erased from the annals of history. Yet something about this tomb, about this mysterious mummy, nags at the edges of our understanding. Was he truly just another nameless pharaoh? A ruler whose reign was as fleeting as the desert wind? Or was he someone more, someone whose identity was deliberately erased, whose story was silenced by the architects of a forgotten past? They found him in this tomb, KV55, his remains nestled amidst the treasures of a forgotten era. His coffin bore no inscription, no hieroglyphs to reveal his name, no record of his lineage or his deeds. It was as if his very existence had been scrubbed from the face of the earth, leaving behind only a whisper of who he might have been. His origins shrouded in mystery, his identity concealed behind a veil of secrecy, he remains an enigma, a puzzle that has defied the keenest minds of archaeologists and historians alike. Some believe him to be Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, his remains misplaced, and his true burial site forever lost to the sands of time. Others see him as Smenkhkare, a fleeting shadow on the throne, a mere footnote in a tale of royal intrigue and forgotten alliances. But there are those who argue for a third possibility, a candidate whose name history has long since erased, a pharaoh whose story was intentionally silenced, whose legacy was deliberately cast aside. Yet despite the passage of centuries, KV55 refuses to yield its secrets easily. Its silence is deafening, its emptiness echoing with the weight of a forgotten past. And as we stand before its gaping maw, we are left to wonder, what story does it hold? What secrets does it keep close to its chest? In the heart of this forgotten tomb, amid the dust and decay, there is a story waiting to be uncovered. A story of a kingdom in turmoil, of a people caught between tradition and change, of a pharaoh who dared to defy the gods. Perhaps the anonymous mummy in KV55 is not just a relic of the past, but a symbol of a forgotten truth. A truth that those in power would rather remain buried, hidden away from the prying eyes of the world. As we continue our journey through the Valley of the Kings, let us not forget the lessons of KV55. Let us not become complacent in the face of injustice, nor turn a blind eye to the suffering of others. For in doing so, we risk becoming the very thing we despise. History is not just a collection of dates and names, but a living, breathing entity that shapes our world. It is up to us to ensure that the stories of those who came before us are not forgotten, that their voices are heard, and that their struggles and triumphs continue to inspire us today. So let us stand together in solidarity with those who fought for justice and equality, with those who dared to dream of a better world. Let us honor their memory by carrying their stories in our hearts and sharing them with the world. For in doing so, we become the keepers of history, the guardians of memory, and the architects of a better future. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time. Together, we have explored the mysteries of ancient Egypt and uncovered the secrets of a forgotten past. But our journey does not end here. There are still countless mysteries to unravel, ancient artifacts to discover, and historical tales to share. So join me once again and let us continue our adventures together. Your support means the world to me and keeps this journey through time alive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop seeking the answers that lie hidden in the sands of time. For in the words of the immortal Cleopatra, history is written by the victors, but sometimes it is remembered by those who refuse to be forgotten.